Here's the deal. I don't want to do this stream tonight, but I'm going to because the news never stops. And in addition to that, we've got a lot to get to. I'm going to be out of office for the next 2 weeks because I got to go to a bunch of weddings and, you know, I'm just not going to have a place to really stream here in my obvious Manhattan View office here. Yeah, this isn't fake at all. And I apologize about the lighting. I'm recording it later at night here. And we're going to go off on some tangents. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I got some good comments on the last video. Here's the deal with my channel. I want this to be a safe space for debate. That's what I want this place to be. I want this to be an open and accepting place of ideas, exchanges of ideas. I want people's thought processes, including my own, to be challenged. Okay? That's what I really want. So feel free to comment about anything you see in my videos. And, you know, I'm not here to belittle anyone. I'm never going to belittle anyone. Unless if you're actually just leaving the most NPC comments. But if you have a few brain cells to rub together for a comment, I'm not going to make fun of you for trying to think critically. I'm not going to do that. So make sure to drop a comment, drop a sub, and we're going to be here. We're publishing content each and every day. Basically, every bit of extra time I have outside of my regular to-do list, my regular work schedule. But I want to talk about one thing. This is my big news headline. And it's that Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve said in Wyoming last week that they are planning to roll back interest rates. They're planning to reduce interest rates. Sorry, my ear itched. Here's the problem with that, at least in my opinion here. Trump has been demanding that interest rates get lowered by Powell. And Powell sees high inflation still. And for context, the Federal Reserve generally wants to keep inflation around 2%. We're at 3.1% right now, according to the latest CPI data. The reason Trump wants interest rates lowered is so he can finance the national debt. He can refinance it and basically make our debt payments less. Because we're paying so much money on interest right now that he just wants that reduced, right? Because then we can actually spend money and we're not just spending it towards interest. Here's the other thing, though. How about we cut spending? How about we just cut spending? That's where I would start. I would start with cutting spending. But, you know, Elon Musk wasn't allowed to do his job inside of Doge. He wasn't allowed to do it. Congress didn't want to pass anything. Let alone, it was just weird having him run around. And on top of that, I don't think this is going to help young people at all. Inflation is going to go up as this happens. And that's not going to make home affordability any easier. So I was seeing a lot of debate on TikTok about this, and there was kind of two sides to this. There was one side saying this is actually going to make homes much more affordable. I don't agree. Because interest rates are lower, so therefore you're paying less interest on your mortgage payment. But here's the problem. A lot of people have been sidelined from buying a house because they don't want to do it at 6% interest. They would rather wait and see if it goes back down to 5 or 4%. So when you get mortgage rates back down to 4% or 4.25%, all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of buyers coming into the market, and demand is just going to skyrocket. So when demand skyrockets, what happens to prices? Prices start skyrocketing. And they also said because of Trump's deportations, you know, that's going to help as well. The problem is Trump isn't deporting anybody. I mean, he's got lower deportation numbers than Biden did. So ultimately, I don't see this working out too well for the younger generation when it comes to home ownership. We definitely need to keep interest rates a bit higher for at least a little bit longer. I'm not saying keep them high for too much longer, but we're at 3.1% inflation right now. What happens when that number reaches 5% again? Bread prices go up even more. I remember when I was in college, I was buying ramen noodles for 25 cents a pack. After the pandemic, it was over $1. I think it was $1.25 for a single cup of spicy noodles. Ridiculous. And we're just going to keep printing money here And if that isn't your sign to buy Bitcoin, I don't know what it is. But ultimately, these interest rates are going to come down. It's going to stimulate the economy. And the reason the Federal Reserve wants to do this is because unemployment has started to go up. And it's gone up to the point where it is basically, it's a recession indicator. Jerome Powell said that these latest numbers we only see inside of a recession. So ultimately, we could be in a recession in the United States right now. We very well could be. So it's something to look out for. Jerome Powell has a very tough job. You're trying to juggle interest rates. You're trying to juggle the president's interest, apparently now, because now the central bank needs to weigh the interests of the president, something that is basically unprecedented before. And then inflation. So job market, president, and inflation. That's apparently the mandate of the Federal Reserve now. On top of that, this comes at a time when Trump just fired one of the Federal Reserve presidents and sent the dollar tumbling a bit more than what it already was. It was at 9% down on the year. And here we are. Absolutely crazy here. So that's the latest. That's the latest on that side. South Korea wants Trump to meet Kim Jong-un once again. The South Korean government has expressed interest in trying to thaw relations with North Korea once again. And they want Trump to do it. The South Korean president met with Trump the other day to talk about this. And ultimately, this is interesting because, well, let me put it this way. I don't think Kim Jong-un has any desire to give up any power in his country. I watch a lot of North Korea videos in my free time because I find North Korea very interesting. It's a place that doesn't have the internet. We don't know much about their lives. And there's a YouTube channel called Dimple Video or something like that. I think they're based in South Korea. And I apologize if you hear horns. I'm at my rush hour traffic outside the window. And they interview North Korean defectors. And they just talk about their life. What was your life like in North Korea? And one of the guys that they interviewed was one of the Secret Service members for Kim Jong-un. And he was in there for about 13 years doing this job. And his job was to patrol Kim Jong-un's houses. And normally you would patrol the houses for about 2 to 3 years. You would be at one house for 2 to 3 years before moving on to the next one. And it's the most brainwashed position, he said. And he basically thought that for the first 6 years, he said, Kim Jong-un is always in there, always working for us, working for the people. But then he started to think a little bit for himself after 6 or 7 years and was like, wait a second, he's not working. He's got this whole pleasure squad thing that camps out at his house for 3 months out of the year. What's that about? That doesn't seem like he's doing business of the country. Seems like he's just doing his own business. And that's exactly most likely the case. And Kim Jong-un, I don't think he cares about the lifestyle of his people. He just wants to keep them content enough and keep them malnourished enough so they don't revolt. If everyone ran for the exits in North Korea today, it would be a slaughter, but a lot of people would get through, right? But that hasn't happened. The people are scared. As long as Kim Jong-un can keep his people in check, he's going to stay in power. There's not a regime change coming in North Korea. It's just not going to happen unless if there is some sort of other pressure, an assassination attempt maybe. But I don't think Kim Jong-un, he's not interested in reunification under a capitalist system. That's probably for sure. And they're not interested in opening up to the West either. They had talked about creating basically like a Hong Kong type special administrative region to facilitate trade with North Korea and the rest of the world. But I can imagine they ended up building one of these towns to do that and then basically scrapping the plans. And they didn't give a reason why they scrapped it. But I imagine it would have to be something like this. A business comes in and they want to do trade with North Korea. They come in. They go to the port, they go to the port authority or the special administrative region, they go to their government, and they say, hey, we need these permits to be able to import or export these items. And they're dealing with a communist bureaucratic machine. And all of a sudden, it's a 3-month wait to get this permit. Well, that's not going to work. We have a ship sitting in Hong Kong right now that wants to come over, and we need this stuff here now. We have suppliers lined up, whatever. And then you slip them a few $100s, and these are people that don't make a lot of money in North Korea by any means. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, got some money. Yeah, we'll speed that along. But then you get the people talking in that special administrative region, and they go, these foreigners, they just hand us money like it's nothing. And they do that every day. There must be a lot more out there than what we're led to believe. And all of a sudden, people are fantasizing about what that outside world is like. They don't think it's the barren wasteland that the propaganda has told them that it is. So ultimately, while I love seeing Kim Jong-un on the world stage, just because every time I see him, it's not that I love Kim Jong-un. It's so mysterious. It's so fascinating to see him outside of North Korea propaganda videos. It's interesting to hear what world leaders have to say about him when they interact with him. But I don't think that there's meaningful dialogue that's going to go on here. And while I hope that things can get better for the North Korean people, I don't think the Western world is not ready to trade directly with Kim Jong-un. They are not ready to do that. Even if North Korea disassembled their entire nuclear arsenal tomorrow, the West isn't going to trade with them. They're going to say, well, let's start with the nukes. So, North Korea gets rid of the nukes, let's say, which they believe are essential to their survival, so they're not going to do that. But let's say they did. They are going to, the West is going to say, okay, now hold open and free elections. Oh, you're not willing to do that? Yeah, sanctions are staying on. Then why did North Korea get rid of their nukes? And North Korea has thought of this. This is all they think about. This is what they fantasize about. And so why would they give up the nukes when the West is just going to keep asking for more and more and more things? It's not like that's what North Korea is thinking on this. And, I don't see trade opening up in any meaningful way in the coming years. While it would be cool to see North Korea kind of open up a little bit, become a little bit more friendlier of a country, the problem with that is if you have foreigners starting to run around the place, you're going to get a very curious population that want to see the outside world. You're going to have that. People are going to be talking. People are going to be having discussions. So ultimately, Kim Jong-un wants to stay in power, and the dynasty wants to live on. So that's what's going on there. I'm going to be very curious to watch this, though. I'm going to eat this up because I'm just curious how these talks are going to go, when they're going to go. I'm curious. So, we'll find out in the coming weeks and probably coming months. It'll probably take a while for anything to get set up. Now, Intel, moving over to Intel, they have, we have some news on their 10% acquisition by the United States government. Apparently the shares, the 10% stake that the US government bought is, they are non-voting shares, meaning the US government cannot tell Intel what to do. And apparently the reason they did it is because they want Intel to build more factories right here in the US. But there's one major problem with that. And it's the fact that Intel doesn't have the technology that Taiwan does. So their processors are inferior to companies like AMD that are using Taiwan's technology for these processors, these 3 nanometer processing boards and fabrication. So while it's great that Trump wants to bring jobs into the country, is that factory going to be relevant in 7 years? Unless if Intel can get the machinery and get the expertise to develop these more advanced chips, it's going to be a pretty tough battle for them. And in addition, I said this on the last episode, this assumes that Intel, this assumes that the government has the right intentions. And this government might have good intentions, but what happens 4 presidents down the road where they're like, hey, we want to finance this welfare program. Let's just take another 30% out of Intel. Let's take another 50%. Oh, hey, we just nationalized Intel. Oh, they're not doing too hot now. That's weird. We didn't expect that. It's exactly what Venezuela did. And I think I've said it in the last episode. I'll say it again. I think it's a slippery slope. Despite the fact that it's non-voting shares, you know, the government is starting to take pieces out of big tech. I'm curious to see how it's going to go over the next few years. Anyway, believe it or not, I got through everything I wanted to in 15 minutes and 41 seconds, so I'm pretty happy with that. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on today's stream. Let me know your thoughts on these topics, what you think. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Drop that comment below. Leave a like, leave a sub, and we'll see you in the next one. If we can turn off the stream. My God. There we go.